Okay, we're here to talk about Silo on Apple TV, Season 3, Episode 5, titled Memory, written by Catherine DeSavino and directed by Arik Avellino. In a flashback, the immediate aftermath of Juliet returning from the outside and finding Bernard in the airlock is revealed. Juliet was sent to recover from her injuries, but was soon released. Camille tells Robert that Bernard, who barely survived, needs to be dealt with. Just before Robert kills Bernard, Bernard tells him about the safeguard and Juliet's knowledge of how to stop it. Robert decides to come with a plan to install Juliet as mayor so she can't be killed and hide Bernard with Martha and Carla. Eventually, Knox, Shirley, Lucas, and others are brought into the plan that includes Bernard, Robert, Martha, Juliet, and Carla. In the present, the team tries to work to get Juliet's memory back by giving her relics from her past, including from her time with George. Nothing seems to work, however, until Robert gives her a Pez dispenser that belonged to Robert's son. Juliet remembers what has she has learned about the safeguard and runs to gather the others to discuss what's next in their plan, which now seems to set up Robert against Camille. Meanwhile, Billings continues his investigation into the supply with Carla and learns that Orla must have died because she was investigating who stole all of the critical supplies from the silo, which they will need to survive. While driving Helen through Washington, D.C., Daniel tells her what he learned from Sam. Someone named Perce Stinson was on the USS Nimitz where the Iran mission was deployed from. As soon as Daniel tells her this, something or someone takes over their car and begins driving them to an undisclosed location. Okay, halfway through the season, we
hmm
get what was largely a flashback in this episode, and largely also quite a bit of exposition. Very, very
Yeah.
little in the sort of whatever you want to call it, present day Washington, D.C. How did this work as a sort of unveiling of answers for you as we learned about Bernard the week before?
Well, I'm curious for your impressions, and I'm also curious for impressions of others out in the world, beyond my own,
Hmm.
because there was a way in for me in which it was like, oh, okay, it makes sense, but a lot of this was the episode spoon feeding me stuff that I put together last week as we talked through, right? How did it land for you?
Yeah, I thought the same. I thought this was largely a we need to explain things that could have been either implied or understood, or that we could have easily predicted through events that have happened. I liked some of the connective tissue between some of the things we've seen in the past, but also I found myself, even though I thought it's stalled at points. Kind of this was a lot, obviously, in the silo. I wish we'd done some more in the other timeline, sort of balance some of this sort of dump of information in Silo 18.
Yeah, I mean it in particular because the first four episodes of the season kind of created that expectation that we were going to go back and forth.
Yeah,
Um, I did pick up on it pretty quickly that we weren't going to this episode.
yeah.
Um, or at least started to guess that that was going to be the case. Um, and well, we got a little bit, and I was almost happily surprised by that. Even for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
moment, right? For a moment, I even thought, "Oh God, it's all going to be a flashback. The whole episode is going to be a flashback." But it wasn't entirely. I don't know. I mean, it's a little hard for me to assess, and we'll just move forward and talk through some plot details more. But definitely for me, it was kind of my least favorite of the season so far.
Mm.
I unfortunately found myself often thinking, like, I don't know, did we really need this? Like, to what extent did we need the flashbacks, particularly with like Knox and Shirley running towards the airlock? And,
Yeah.
it seems like, all right, well, they made this plan to, like, that this was going to be an episode and then figured out how to make it fill the time. And that's the first time
I
this season I felt that way.
I felt that way, especially in the first half. It seemed like there was a lot of discussion about how we're going to build the rig to lower people down, what it's going to take to do this thing that mechanical needs to accomplish. There's a lot of just, sort of operational things that they were figuring out. That's sort of like, yeah, this could have been filled, it seems like, with some something that moved us forward a little bit better. Or the other timeline. Pick one.
Yeah. So like maybe it's okay. It's certainly not the first time
Yeah.
the series has had an episode like this or multiple
Yeah,
instances like you point to
right.
in the first two seasons.
We had a whole episode with Juliet fixing a generator, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So look, there is a good amount of information here, and fair enough that while I correctly guessed a lot of it, um, I guess I was I thought they might tie in the stuff with Orla in a way that I guess is not the case. So that's going to be
Mm,
interesting to talk about. That seems distinct. That seems fully separate. We do finally though see Carla, and I was right about
yeah,
Carla and Martha being involved in caring for Bernard and so on and
right.
so forth, right? Um, and Sims, of course, but I think that was the one that was almost, well, it was at least the easiest inference to draw, you
Yeah, it
know?
was sort of a process by elimination. Who else could it have been? Yeah.
Yeah, if you started thinking about it, they did in the flashback give us him cutting a hole in the plastic wrap. Okay. They also, I noticed, gave some explanation for the plastic wrap, um,
Mm.
in terms of the worries a doctor or whatever has about the contamination being possible and saying like, well, we need to not just a bag, we need to like double bag it. We need a plastic wrap. Like, they didn't seem super worried about it with Juliet, though. When, I mean, it's weird because they filled out so much so explicitly, but then they kind of left this little kind of, what, caesura or what have you, in terms of Juliet becoming mayor.
Mm.
It's like she's still in the med bay or whatever, and it's
Yeah,
not clear if
she
she's
took
going to
the oath
be.
of office from her bed. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, is she going to be okay? I don't know. Well, she's mayor now, and
Yeah.
or like the idea that they start a mayoral campaign while at the same time, like, well, the other guy's dead, but she should be mayor
Yeah.
when she's still in the ICU. That felt a little wonky to me, but whatever, I'll accept it. Um, what else? Oh, I mean,
I did like along those lines. I will say, I feel at times throughout this series, Robert Sims has been, a bit robotical and a bit, just follow orders and do the things I'm supposed to do and move from one task to the next. So I sort of appreciated him being a little bit of a strategist, right? What do I do with Bernard? How do I set it up so that Juliet, is this figure that, if anything happens to her, it would be devastating, sort of running this underground PR campaign that gets her elected mayor. Sort of his. Well, I think it paid off. Maybe there was sort of more sudden shift to sort of towards what Juliet and Bernard's what their intentions are than I would have thought originally. Sort of setting him up in that way and now pitting him and that team against what's going to happen. It's going to be, I thought was pretty smart.
yeah, no, and I think it all works well. I guess here's a question we could discuss briefly, at least. Where are your feelings when it comes to Sims? Are you feeling sympathetic towards him at this point? And maybe you could also throw Bernard into the same question.
It's interesting. You almost empathize with Robert because he feels isolated. He feels alone. He
Hmm.
feels like his wife is moving on and doing something else without him. He can't even be the shadow or be involved in these things. She's doing all of it without him, and she's just sort of trickling down information to him. And so you do empathize with him a little bit. And now that he is sort of turned more towards we need to understand what's going on here and prevent all of us from dying or prevent all of us from getting our memory erased. I do sympathize with him quite a bit more.
Yeah, I think so. I think I do too. Although I'm a little hesitant to go too far with it. You know what I mean? And it's interesting though because I think Bernard and Sims, maybe even Sims more than Bernard,
Hmm.
was kind of set up as a bad guy.
Yeah.
In insofar as with Bernard, well, he definitely was too, but there's been a little bit of wrinkle along these lines always
Yeah.
with Bernard more than with Sims.
Yeah.
But I think the move with regard to both of them is along these lines that while clearly they've done some bad things and held these positions of power within the silo that have led them to do bad things, they've also themselves also they've been manipulated, as it were, or coerced,
Yes,
right?
that is true.
The level to which they didn't really have much of a choice. So you have, for example, Bernard talking about how Camille now is in an even tougher spot than he was because when he was the head of
Yes.
IT for almost his entire tenure, he didn't know about the safeguard and all of that. Now she's in a position where she's precisely got the computer telling her, like, well, if things go bad, we're killing everybody. You know what I mean? Um,
And she has no shadow, right? There's no one that's been adopted into that position, as I understand it?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Um, I would guess, making some inferences. This is all relatively surface level, but still. There was one point in an earlier episode where the algorithm said something like, "We're beyond the order
Mm.
now."
Hmm.
Well, I feel like they're in this like dangerous crisis space, right?
Yeah.
Beyond what the order has guidance for.
Yeah.
Where what we
Yeah.
know is the order is precisely that. It's like, hey, if things start going wrong, here's what you do. Maybe you put these drugs in the water supply or whatever, blah blah blah. Um, but they surpass anything the order has guidance about, and they're kind of whatever. I don't know what improvising, I guess, is the
Yeah.
word I want. And to try to get back into the right sort of space. You know what I mean? So like it would make some sense to
Hmm.
me if we're interpreting it along those lines that no, Camille doesn't have a shadow. No one besides her is allowed to know about the safeguard, right?
That's right. That's right.
Um, and it's even like kind of a problem that she
She
does.
has Emerson and others to do her dirty work, but yeah, in terms of that level of knowledge, no, no one does.
Yeah, they're not allowed to know why. And who's on the list who be eliminated? The people who do know about the safeguard besides her,
Yeah,
Bernard, Lucas, and Juliet, right?
that's right.
Um, so like the idea there, I think almost has to be, well, if we get beyond this crisis, which it suggested they could do if they killed Juliet a couple
Mm,
episodes ago or whatever, well, then you could be back into the confines of the normal kind of structure, you know, um,
yeah,
and then maybe there would be a shadow or what have you. But um, I don't think that's what's going to happen in the plot. So
yeah, yeah. I don't anticipate that. This is coming to a head in some major way, and I do wonder. It doesn't. Just thinking back to Camille and Robert again, it doesn't appear that they will have any more, happy home moments anymore. They appear to both realize that they are at odds, or do we think that Camila's picked up on that yet?
yeah, insofar as there's definitely there's at least significant tension. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like right towards the end of the episode, there's that scene where they come face to face, and it's the tension's there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I don't know that there's going to be explicit conversation or what have you. It is part of what's interesting about Robert as a character at this point. I struggle, by the way, because for like the first two seasons of the show, I just called him Sims. But
yeah.
now,
Exactly. And now
now I
they're two
feel like we
Sims.
might confuse him with Camille. Anyway,
Exactly, exactly.
um, but what was I going to say? Oh, but like the extent to which what he's trying to do is not exactly against what Camille might be okay with doing if they could have the right kind of conversation,
Yeah, yeah,
because her concern is with saving people in the silo, and in particular,
yes,
her family, and ideally not having to wipe everyone's memory, right? So if she was willing to accept the path of murdering Juliet to make that happen, you could imagine she'd be more than happy to accept the path of disabling the safeguard to make it happen. But that's not a conversation or debate they'll be able to have. So it'll be kind of
that's
interesting to
right.
see what their dynamic looks like. Because I don't even know, like, what's Robert going to say now? Is he just going to be like, well, I looked everywhere for Juliet and I couldn't find her? Seems
Yeah,
like that's where he's
yeah.
at, right?
It seems like she knows something, and he knows that she knows something, and so there's may not be any more. Oh, honey, how can I help you with the algorithm today? Type of conversations.
Yeah. But look, I particularly don't know. There's this moment where he says, oh, we've been away for too long. And like he and
Hmm.
Juliet are going back up the silo. I really don't know what they were going to do then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he gives her the Pez dispenser and she remembers and heads back down. But, if that hadn't happened, what? You know, um, I don't know how they would have, I don't know how Juliet would have gotten out of that one. Exactly. I mean, I guess because she's mayor, she's awake, she's conscious. Camille
Yeah.
couldn't just straight up kill her in front of everyone.
And
Um,
is it your understanding, just because we're now this is, I mean, certainly Chekhov's Pez dispenser. We've seen it so many times this season, and we saw it at the end of season two. th he was reluctant to give it to Juliet because it was something that he had used to connect with his son, and he was going to use that as a relic with his son should something happen. I think that's how I understood it, but just want to get your interpretation of that.
That's what he had in mind, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he was hoping with a connection to his son that it would potentially serve as a meaningful relic if, so like if the vitamin D plus was put in the water,
Yeah.
he doesn't want his son to forget him, and he was hoping this might play a role, so he'd been kind of selfishly holding on to it. Um,
But wouldn't he? This is just sending me down a rabbit hole, but wouldn't I guess maybe he thinks his mind is not going to be wiped in that scenario because if it is, then he just wakes up with a thing in his pocket. He doesn't know what it is and tosses it or whatever. I mean, I guess he thinks he's exempt from the mind drugs.
no, I don't think he does. I agree though. I don't know that it holds up this aspect of
Yeah,
it. They have put that in there, and he's got some, maybe vague, not quite rational thought that the pest dispenser will help him and his son maintain their relationship, even if their memories have been wiped.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think he even maybe says that that's not really rational.
yeah.
My,
But at that
my,
point,
my,
you're just holding on to something. If you're threatened with being separated from your family or your memories, you're just holding on to anything you can.
yeah, my bigger complaint is that he waited this long because
That's right.
Juliet has a connection to that. He knows Juliet had a connection to it and all of that, and he's withholding this,
Hmm.
while they're having this conversation. They're trying to like give her kids' toys or whatever. I guess they were her toys, but that doesn't
Yeah,
do much. The watch does a good deal. But like the fact that he didn't come around to trying to give her the pest dispenser until they were already walking back up the silo. Come on, man.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's like yeah,
yeah. And I don't know, I don't know that I don't know if appealing to Chekhov's gun is quite accurate, because that line is that if a gun's introduced in the first act, it has to go off by the third act, something like
yeah.
that. And I don't know what that would mean for the pest dispenser to go off, Maybe it's a MacGuffin. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's right.
I don't know what
That's
term is it. I feel like
right.
it. I do increasingly feel like it's almost just this signifier that doesn't necessarily have a deeper meaning,
Yeah.
but is there throughout the story. And you go, well, how does that connect up, right? So the biggest question I have is, excuse me, um, biggest question I have is just like, how did it get in silo in the first place?
Yeah.
So
Is
when,
is it the one we saw at the end of season two? Yeah, I think that's the big question is that, however long we're talking about, does it made its way from, Helen's pocket into where Robert has it now? I guess.
yeah, so let's go down that path a bit more. Let's talk about Carla and critical supply a bit more.
Yeah.
We don't really get more information about who killed Orla Kent per se. Carla thinks it's because she had tasked Orla with helping her investigate the apparent thefts from critical supply. All right. But then she reveals to Paul Billings and us
Hmm.
the deeper thing here, which is that because of these thefts, I guess someone's been stealing from critical supply. Well, and I wonder why, and so on and so forth. A lot of emphasis put on light bulbs, but probably other stuff.
Yeah.
I've wondered about the sustainability of the silo, but we're told here explicitly it's not, right? There's some
Hmm.
stuff that has been here from the beginning. We can't make more of it, like light bulbs. Those include like grow lights for the farms or whatever. They're supposed to have 50 years left, but Carlos says where it stands right now, we're down to 2 years, man.
Yeah. In
Um,
in 3 months, they went from, do I understand that correctly? In the 3 months she's taken over supply, that it went from 50 years to 2 years, or did I mishear that?
mm,
There was such she talked about some time frame she's worked in supply or critical supply. For some reason I thought it was months, maybe it was years, but regardless, in some relatively short time frame, they've gone from 50 years to 2 years.
I think that what it might have been was that she was saying when she discovered that stuff was missing
Hmm.
or something like that. I have to double check.
Got it.
I
Okay.
guess I didn't put a lot of weight on that question myself, but yeah, I mean, because I'm busier just wondering, well, wait a minute, who's stealing from critical supply and why? And if they're stealing
Yeah.
light bulbs, what are they doing with those light bulbs? I'm really curious about that, but then maybe I went too quickly to even the bigger picture type question I started wondering about here.
Yeah, so I was curious about this because it does seem to open the door to a pretty massive question and mystery, not only as to who, but yeah, why. And then you can start getting into more granular questions about like where are you going to hide this stuff and what are you going to use it for and what's the purpose and all this. But who would be taking these things and for what purpose? I just can't, other than someone trying to sabotage the silo, I can't put my head around what they would need these things for.
I mean, yeah, the only rational thing I could think of almost would be someone sneaking in through the mine tunnels from another silo,
Yeah, yeah.
which I suppose is a possibility. Maybe it's going to open us up in that way. But the the other question is, all right, man, what was the plan here? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, if they only have 2 years left, all right,
Hmm.
that's really pressing, right? We've been doing this podcast for more than 2 years, goes by just like that, you know. But like, even if it were 50, what was it like? Were, was the plan for it to only be 400 years in the silo? And if so, is that based on some projection that after 400 years it'll be safe to go outside? Or the direction I'm leaning more in is more paranoid.
Yeah,
Was the plan that they're never going to go back outside and it's like a
yeah,
400-year experiment or something like that?
yeah. And some of this, some of this is explained in the second book, and
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
certainly won't comment on that. Um, but yeah, there seems to be to your point, a finite amount of things for a specific reason. And so yeah, what is that reason other than, we can guarantee that after this much time it will be safe, or are going to go down a path of we don't want you to have this material after a certain amount of time. Either of
Yeah.
these things are worth pursuing if we can do it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, right. I'm not surprised there's more information in the book, which you can't share. So I'll lay out my theory more. And I did this in the article I wrote for this week, too, if you want to go read my recap on tvobsessive.com. But it's not, I feel like something about the theory's wrong. Like I'm not, I do not feel like there's any chance that I'm completely right in what I'm about to say. But this is where I find my mind going that, um, and this ties in something we do get in the end of this episode with Helen and Daniel. There's not a whole lot there, but the one
Right.
line about some guy named Pierce Stenson, and Daniel says something like he's the number one advocate for AI control. All
Hmm.
right. Well, does that mean we're controlling AI, or does that mean we're being controlled by AI? So I'm kind of going in the latter direction there and imagining that the whole point of the silos actually is to train the algorithm. Um, and such that the people living in the silo are just like test subjects,
Mm.
and they're going to run out of these critical supplies at a certain point, but that's just the end of the experiment, right? So they're willing to kill them off before that if they have to. That's the safeguard. But if not, then well, at the end of the time frame, they'll just destroy all the test subjects that are left. This is how like scientists treat lab rats and bunnies and stuff like this.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
The biggest reason, the biggest thing I find sticking in my mind against this is about the time frame again. And of course, I've been wondering for a long time whether they've actually been in there, for a shorter period of time than we've been told. 'Cause I don't buy the patience of 400 years. I mean, there's hubris to it as well to imagine that you could like set up a 400-year experiment and people would still be around to care in 400 years.
Yeah.
But like in terms of thinking about any possible motivation, I also couldn't see the patience of it. So
Yeah. Like who is this person and why would he set up an experiment that long? And yeah, what would be the point of doing that?
yeah, so I feel like at very least I'm missing something with that kind of path, and I do continue to wonder if somehow it hasn't been 350 years because the one source of information we got saying that was the algorithm itself, which I don't trust that. But there was the other one, which was the guy in the mines, Harwood, saying that based on the mining activity, he'd estimate it's been like 350 years. And that would have to take us into, that they built the silo with evidence that it was older in the mines than it actually was or something, which I suppose is
Yeah. Yeah.
possible. But Yeah, I don't know.
All of this stuff you are saying, I have a prediction of what in the finale they will reveal in this
Yeah.
season. And all of this stuff is tied into what I think will happen there. And I'm really, really looking forward to dissecting it if that's the case, because I think that all of these things, are related to one another.
Yeah. That's a, I feel like I'm close to figuring it out, but far away at the same time. It's like there's definitely a missing piece or
Yeah, yeah.
there's something. And so I hope they pull it off well to where when we do get whatever reveal it is, it just feels almost feels like I should have guessed in retrospect, but I didn't.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like I feel like the best kind of twist or reveal is along those lines where you're like, oh,
yeah.
of course, or something like
Yeah.
that. But you didn't see it coming. You're just when it
Yeah.
happens, you go like,
Yeah.
right, okay. So I don't know. We'll see. One other thing I did want to mention that happens in the silo in part because I didn't even find a way to work this into my recap article, unfortunately. I figure it will relate to something later, but it
Mm,
was one of those things where in my article it would have just been like one line and saying, and by the way, Martha's playing with a radio. And that's about all I've got here as well. But I do want to mention, by the way, Martha's playing with a radio. And Bernard says something about Silo 1 surveilling the channels, and that's about all we get.
yeah. And then learning, apparently, Martha never having heard the word channel before, learning what
Yeah.
that is and what that means. And yeah, Bernard for giving a little bit of explanation for that. I think that I imagine that's purposeful. I imagine we'll return to that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I did wonder about, him saying that Silo 1 surveils the radio channels or whatever. Kind of an interesting tidbit to play with, right? I mean, there is some suggestion then that there is like Silo One, which is somehow not just one amongst others, but separate. And I think that Bernard told us last season that there are actually 51 silos too,
I think that's right.
which makes me think that maybe like Silo One is not part of the 50. I don't know, but that just a little nugget in there. We'll see where that
Hmm.
goes.
Hmm.
Um, it's immediately interesting if it's opening up some possibility that Martha can either make contact or hear even
Yeah.
things that are happening
Yeah.
in other silos. That's really intriguing. So I did want to mention that briefly.
If they can discover a way, yeah, not just for another silo to surveil them, but for them to listen in on another one, that would open up a whole world of things we could be looking at.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like she's at very least trying to do that, right? She's
Yeah.
like trying to change the frequency on the radio to be able to tune in the broadcast from another silo,
Yep.
basically,
Yep.
So I mean, she seems relatively close to that. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if this is like AM frequencies or what, but that's what I was kind of imagining. Or what? Short band would be even whatever. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to matter in some way moving forward, though. Um, let's see. I think we've pretty much covered stuff in Silo 18, unless there's more you want to say there. We probably should say a little bit more about what we do get in the before times.
Yeah, yeah, I think we should. Again, very little in Washington. We get a name of someone who is, as you outlined, the this advocate for AI control, whatever that means. Is that what it is that takes over their car when Daniel and Helen are together and they're on their way to do or meet with someone? We won't necessarily say it here, but there is one big, casting name that, has not been included in this series yet. So if you want to
Yeah.
find that, you can. But it'll be interesting to see how this person or what they do is sort of rolled into what's going to happen in the before time. But I certainly imagine it's there to help us uncover what happened with Charlotte and what was going on in Iran.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know about the loss of control of the car. I risk a real world tangent. Like wait, when did the self-driving cars actually happen? I feel like I missed something almost. Like it was for years we were talking about it, and then all of a sudden people were like, "Oh, it took a Waymo," and I'm like, "Wait, what does it? What? I don't even understand how this." It would sound like a Luddite for a moment, but like I don't understand how those things are legal. It's like I drive a car, I had to get a driver's license.
Yeah.
Did that have to get a driver's license? Did it have to, do a written exam? Anyway, like I don't feel like should have to ban it. I feel like the existing laws should have, been more of a barrier to just doing it,
Yeah, they just
But
they
you
they have
know,
Waymos have recently been unveiled in Houston, so they're starting to be all over the place around here.
yeah, I think that what it comes down to is, that slogan the tech bros have about moving fast and breaking things.
Hmm.
That I'm just like diametrically opposed to that.
Yeah.
Like, well, I want to say move slowly and make sure you don't mess anything up.
Yeah,
That's the slogan
right.
I want, and
Especially when
to
it comes with driverless cars. Yeah,
to
make
like
sure.
govern the world. You know what I mean? Like just all over the place. So we need to have some change. Just like make sure you're being careful about it.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? I don't know where that man. Anyway, that's something of a side note. Pulling back to the series, yeah. I'm led to imagine that they're going to be taken by this vehicle to what Paris Stanton or some other muckety muck in power or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, last episode Daniel said something like he rented the van from a flyer on a lamppost, which
Yeah.
I've never encountered. I don't think that is a real thing
And
that
how
you
many
could do.
and how many vans that you're getting off flyers and lampposts have self-driving capabilities? That's the real question.
So last week I was saying like, well, okay, I guess I'll just accept that. Although I was like, I've
Yeah.
never seen such a ridiculous thing, and I feel like I'm savvy enough in the world that if I did see a flyer in a lamppost, there's no way that I would trust it. Apparently, Daniel not so savvy,
Yeah.
because putting it together, it has to be that was just a trap, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to see the flyer. You know what I mean? Like I'm imagining it's like the flyer says in big letters, like rent a car the NSA cannot find. These little pull tabs with the number on it. It's like definitely safe from all surveillance. Where like you can't rent a car from anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say, now exactly halfway through the season, I I think that what they did in this episode might down the road lead to a mostly before times episode.
yeah,
I am a bit surprised that they're not further along with this conspiracy than they are, considering not just what happens in the story, but what we've seen in the trailer and what some of the things are that are shown. It- I think they need to do. I think they have a lot to do over the next 5 episodes, and so I'm curious, how much more time we spend in DC. I hope we don't have many more episodes where we don't spend time there because I think it's important that we do.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at this point, even if it's like next week is pretty much all in the before times.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, which works. That's fine. That's fair enough if that's what they're doing. I did really appreciate how for the first few episodes of the season they went back and forth
yeah.
and had a way to kind of thematically connect them anyway. And
Yes,
maybe as they proceeded with the season, that just didn't work quite so well. So we've got this one that focuses almost entirely in the silo.
yeah,
And then, okay, well, maybe the next one will be almost entirely in the before times.
exactly.
But
Yeah, I do wonder, having not watched ahead, I do wonder, well, what we'll see or if that will happen.
yeah. Well, I mean, and it would make sense to me too, insofar as like I don't know how much more I expect to happen in the silo this season.
Hmm.
So I hope they don't spin their wheels too much or whatever. But if what I'm imagining is okay, well, like the end of the season is them disabling the safeguard. You know what I mean? It seems like that needs to happen pretty soon or they're in deep trouble.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
mean,
mean?
they were carrying up the stuff up the stairs 2 episodes ago to put in the water. I mean, yeah, they can't wait, 10 more episodes from now.
Well, no, like in narrative time, it needs to be like that a day. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
So, like, how long are you going to drag this out in terms of episode runtime? So, we'll see. Definitely still really enjoying this season. Always a pleasure to talk about it with you, Brian. Anything else you want to hit on this one before we wrap up?
That covers it. We're looking forward to hitting the second half of the season next week.
Absolutely, yeah. So, thanks always for listening to the podcast. Hopefully, you've enjoyed it. If so, please do hit give us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. Check out tvobsessive.com. You can find written work on all sorts of TV shows there, including Silo. I'm writing recaps on this season. Um, if you want to follow us on social media, if you search for TV Obsessive, you should find us. And as for the podcast, we'll be back next week, continuing to talk about Silo.
All right, looking forward to that. See you then.